Aloha kakahiaka kākou. E lua minuke i hala o ka hola umi ma iwakalua kumakahi o Aukake i ka makahiki e lua kaukani iwakalua kumalima. O ke ia e olu mai e ho'omalu ke KŌMIKE aloha ʻāina. O wau o Kiani Rollins Fernandez, ka luna ho'omalu o ke ia KŌMIKE. It is 10:02 on August 21st, 2025. Will the KŌMIKE aloha ʻāina please come to order? I'm your chair, Kiani Rollins Fernandez. And there are currently no testifiers. No, I lied. There are testifiers at the Molokai District Office, and we will take them up at that time. Okay. Oh, and then members, in accordance with Sunshine Law, if you are not in the council chamber, please identify by name if anyone is in the room, vehicle, workspace with you today. Minors do not need to be identified. Please see the last page of the agenda for information on meeting connectivity. We will be joined by Committee Vice Chair Polton in a little bit. With us in the chamber, we have Committee Member Tom Cook. Aloha.
Aloha, good morning, Chair. There's no testifiers in KAA, and looking forward to the meeting. Thank you.
Mahalo. Next, let's see, I don't see Committee Member Tasha Kama on at the moment, so we'll excuse her for now. And then in the chamber, we have Committee Member Alice Lee. Aloha.
Good morning, aloha.
Okay. And then online, we have Committee Member Shane Senensi. Aloha.
Aloha kakaiaka kākou, ole wau ma'ane'i ko ulume halavai. And I'm here by myself, and there's no testifiers in Hana Chair. Mahalo.
Mahalo. And then perhaps joining us a little later. Oh, okay, I see Committee Member Yukile Sugimura walking to her office now, so she'll likely join us in a little bit. I know Committee Member Nohelani U'uhajens, sorry, non-voting committee member Nohelani U'uhajens expressed interest in joining today's meeting for the third item on our agenda, so she may join us later. And then non-voting committee member Gabe Johnson did not express interest in joining today's meeting, but he's always welcome. Okay. And then our committee staff today is Committee Secretary Lorianne Tengan, Senior Legislative Analyst Casey Apo Takayama, Legislative Analyst Kirsten Sabo, Legislative Analyst Tiare Del Castillo, welcome. Legislative Attorney Megan Moniz, and Council Services Assistant Clerk Leigh Deneen. And I'll give Member U'uhajens a minute to set up before I call on her.
Good morning, Chair.
Oh,
How
okay,
are you?
calling you now. Mahalo for joining us. Aloha. Okay, members, we have 3 items on today's agenda. Molokai Climate Change and Sea Level Rise Adaptation and Resiliency Master Plan, and Bill 106, 2025, naming Mapulehu Cultural Preserve, and Bill 107, 2025, naming Hamakualoa Cultural Preserve. If there are no objections, my intention is to take the first item and then the last 2 items together. Are there any objections? Mahalo, members. Since we have presentations for all the items, we'll jump directly into the first item before receiving testimony. The Molokai Climate Change and Sea Level Rise Adaptation Resiliency Master Plan, e kala mai, that name is so long and that was my fault. In 2019, at one of my first Molokai Town Hall meetings, the issue of climate change and sea level rise impacts came up as a top concern in our community. From there, my office did 2 things. Prioritize proposed funding for the countywide master plan, climate change, sea level rise, resiliency action plan, and all that jazz. Starting with Molokai, and created a community working group, which later that year held a Climate Action Summit on Molokai. Okay. And, okay. So for the countywide climate change and sea level rise adaptation and resiliency master plan grant to Sustainable Molokai. I'm going to share with you all the hoops they had to jump through because I'm a process person and love process. So I wanted to share with you the process that they went through to come up with the final product that you'll get to see today. One, build relationships and an organizing framework for advancing collaborative efforts among public and private land owners in Molokai. 2, ensure social equity and democratic participation for all members in the community. 3, integrate indigenous place-based expertise and techniques that ensure the health, preservation, and regeneration of ecosystems and public natural resources. 4, identify all relevant existing research and studies on climate change and sea level rise impacts on Molokai and explain the rationale for including any information or data from existing research and studies in the contractor's final work product. The contractor must not repeat the work of the existing relevant research and studies. 5, compile all relevant existing condition report vulnerability assessments and plans. This information should, 1, document existing conditions on Molokai to include coastal resources, county boundaries, private property, ownership boundaries, Federal Emergency Management Agency special flood hazard area boundaries, disadvantaged community boundaries, land use categories, waterways, habitat types, and ground surface elevations. 2, the most vulnerable properties by screening existing vulnerability assessment information. And 3, include all relevant general plan and Molokai Island Plan policies for Molokai and all regulatory guidance and standards pertaining to the performance of vulnerability assessments and planning adaptation projects. That was 5. 6, summarizing existing sea level rise scenarios, erosion data, and methodology. 7, identify critical assets and asset managers, as well as issue a survey and summarize the results to understand the adaptation capacity of those assets. 8, improve the community's collective understanding on the risks to all infrastructure from flooding and inundation caused by climate change and sea level rise on Molokai. 9, identify vulnerable populations and the interests of affected landowners and stakeholders, including non-transportation infrastructure such as transmission lines for water, natural gas, and electricity and agriculture. 10, identify priority projects and districts on Molokai. So that was the scope of work. Or this is also part of the scope of work, which is the community outreach. And the community outreach was 1, conduct a virtual sea level rise tour, and if permissible, in light of government gathering restrictions, we amended this because that wasn't there initially, but that was there after COVID. Government gathering restrictions, an in-person walking tour for community participation in areas where flooding is anticipated in the future to increase public awareness and gathering information on the unique challenges that climate change poses for Molokai. 2, develop a robust public outreach program and promote community and stakeholder engagement in the plan development by developing and utilizing a stakeholder master list of potentially affected property owners, organizations, and community representatives that includes the Department of Planning, Maui Emergency Management Agency, and Molokai Planning Commission. 3, promote and facilitate stakeholder meetings and community workshops, including preparing exhibits and meeting materials and other technical documents designated to facilitate stakeholder agreements and participation. All community workshops and meetings must be video recorded and submitted to Akaku for archiving. 4, contractor must create a web page to the contractor's website, a social media interface, newsletters designed to obtain public input and update the public about upcoming meetings and workshops, the schedule of activities and events, draft documents, and the progress of the developing plan. Meetings and workshops must be advertised via newspaper, community bulletin boards, and email. 5, conduct at the commencement of the work an initial meeting in each district of Molokai, Mauna Loa, Ho'olehua, Kaunakakai, and Mana'e, with stakeholders as groups or individually based on their preference. The purpose of the initial meeting in each district is to introduce the project, create a community support strategy, discuss relevant existing studies, identify information gaps, identify stakeholders' short-term and long-term goals and priorities, identify other areas of concern, discuss ideas for possible adaptation measures, and identify priority districts. Each initial meeting may be held via interactive video conference or in person in accordance with government-mandated gathering restrictions. 6, conduct at least 5 community workshops, see details below, in the priority districts identified during the initial series of meetings. At least 1 workshop must be conducted in each district across the island. For pertinent districts, additional specific identification workshop may be held as necessary. While complying with any gathering restrictions, the public may participate in tabletop exercises during the workshop. The contractor may engage stakeholders to help in the public outreach process. Regular interaction and communication with the community is critical to the success of the plan. Interactive video conference meetings are permissible. However, careful attention must be given to Manae and other areas within districts that do not have internet access. The contractor must post the community workshop schedule well in advance to the community meeting to communicate meeting information to the districts and must make reasonable effort to structure each workshop to maximize the participation of Molokai residents. Sea level rise tours may be included in the workshop per priority district. 7, identify feasible strategies to protect vulnerable infrastructure that are compatible with adjacent land uses and identify the pros and cons of each strategy for low and high SLR scenarios. 13, develop a method for evaluating cost estimates associated with each strategy identified in section B, 10, 17, and itemize potential external variables. And then the last one, perform a cost-benefit analysis for each proposed sea level rise adaptation project in the plan. The analysis should consider future costs avoided by implementing each plan and benefits gained. The project team will work with the county to determine the costs and benefits that should be considered for evaluation, which may include property values, ecosystem services, public works values, recreational assets, and the benefits to disadvantaged communities. Where it is not practical or appropriate to assign monetary value to costs and benefits, develop alternative methods for assessing values and describe method used. And then I won't go into detail of the community workshops as I detailed, but there are 5 of them, unless you want to hear them. Okay, just checking. And I will welcome committee member Yukile Sugimura. Aloha.
Aloha. Excuse me for being tardy and looking forward to this meeting. Thank you.
Awesome. Mahalo for being here. Okay. And then on the back of this, and staff will, not sure if staff already uploaded it to Granicus or will later, but it has like the timeline of the initial, well, I don't know if the initial, we can upload all of them because like initially this was granted before the pandemic, and the pandemic happened, and our resource folks can kind of talk a little bit more about all of that happening. If there are no objections, members, I would like to designate Katie Mokuau, Harmony Williams, and Heather Place, who were the leads on the council-initiated project during their time working with Sustainable Molokai, as resource persons in accordance with Rule 18A of the Rules of the Council. Are there any objections?
No objections.
Great. Mahalo. Mahalo again, Ms. Mokuau, Ms. Place, and Ms. Williams for your willingness to take on such a big and important project. We will begin with their presentation. Aloha. And Ms. Mokuau, you can turn on your, yeah, there we go. Okay. The floor is yours.
Hey, thank you so much. Aloha council members and everyone present today. So my name is Harmony Williams. I am the former executive director of Sustainable Molokai. And before that, I was an environmental planner. So I just have to say I was really super excited to take on this project when it was dreamt up and funded and awarded to Sustainable Molokai back in 2020. As council member Rollins Fernandez alluded to, obviously 2020 threw us some curveballs. And so with all of the, Sustainable, we were doing a ton of COVID emergency food relief efforts. And then along with all the community gathering restrictions, we decided to push the start date to July 2021. Of course, COVID continued, and so we still had to do quite a bit of restructuring of the project in order to really get all of that community input and ensure that it was done in a safe way. I also wanted to mention that during this time, I actually switched roles and took on a statewide job with the Hawaii Good Food Alliance in 2021, but I was able to stay involved in this project as a contractor. So I just really wanted to start by thanking Katie Mokuao and Heather Place as they, were really able to take the lead on a lot of the project components, especially coordinating all of the community outreach events. We also had Malia Kurgawa, who is the founder of Sustainable Molokai, as an advisor on this project, and Matt Yamashita, who is an amazing filmmaker. He was able to film and make videos of our process, and those were also a critical part of our ability to get the word out, especially to those community members who were not able to attend in-person events. Of course, I want to thank Councilmember Rollins Fernandez, who just really made this project possible and has supported our efforts all along the way. So with all that said, basically the project did take longer than expected, but we did complete and submit our final plan in April of 2024. And so it's just really my pleasure to be here today to present the highlights to you. I think I was gonna ask Katie and Heather to introduce themselves. We then have a video to share with you guys, and then a brief presentation, and then open to questions.
Mahalo,
So
Ms.
thank
Williams.
you, and I'll hand it. Yeah.
And before I recognize Ms. Mokua, I'm going to welcome Committee Vice Chair Tamara Paulton.
Aloha kakayaka kaku, streaming live and direct from the Pili. I have one unnamed minor with me, and I'm a little under the weather, but it's not COVID, it's not strep, and it's not the flu. So in case anyone was in contact with me, it's not any of those things.
Mahalo for joining us, even though you're not feeling well. Appreciate it. And if anytime you have to step away, please feel free to. Hope you feel better quickly. Okay, Ms. Mokua.
Aloha kakayaka kalamai. My daughter has COVID. Pretty sure I have it too. So Harm is going to take the lead, but I just wanted to say aloha. And then our other team member, Heather Place, is on here also.
Mahalo, Ms. Mokwao. Sorry. Thank you for joining us, even though you're not feeling well either. So we'll go into the video. Okay. All right, staff will share the video now.
Is inevitable, but at the rate.
Can you hear Member Sanensi? Member Bolton? Okay.
Climate change is inevitable, but at the rate we're going, it's like warp speed, and the damage that's happening is like way extreme.
No
So I've
audio
seen,
yet, Chair.
6 decades of change
Staff, Member
with the
Sanensi,
climate.
the audio.
The ʻāINA has changed. The beach has changed. It makes me sad.
Our vegetation has changed, the shoreline has receded, and of course all the local families live mostly all along the shoreline here. And so
Mahalo
we need
everyone
to
for letting us
protect it
know
so
that the
we can
audio isn't
continue our way
working
of life out here.
online. We can pause the video and then try to address that. And if you want to take a quick recess, staff, so that you don't, okay. All right, members, okay. We're gonna take a 2-minute recess and then reconvene at 2:23. So sorry about that. Oh, 10:23. Okay, we'll make it 10:24 because it's almost, okay. 10:24. The KAA is now in recess. Will KAA please come to order? Okay, mahalo for that quick recess, members. We'll restart the video now that the audio is working for those online.
Climate change is inevitable, but at the rate we're going, it's like warp speed, and the damage that's happening is like way extreme.
So I've seen, 6 decades of change with the climate. The ʻāINA has changed, the beach has changed. It makes me sad.
Our vegetation has changed, the shoreline has receded, and of course all the local families live mostly all along the shoreline here. And so we need to protect it so that we can continue our way of life out here.
Sea level rise and climate change affects our ability to respond to our community in emergencies. A lot of that is access through roads that are now being damaged and soon will be impassable.
Majority of our community knows that, sea level rise is happening, climate change is happening, and they're at the point is, okay, what are we gonna do about it?
So this plan came out of a grant through Maui County and Council Member Rollins Fernandez.
Councilmember Rollins Fernandez hosted community work groups. And through those groups, there was a great concern about people not taking climate change and sea level rise seriously on our island.
Current models are already projecting that downtown Kaunakakai could be underwater in our lifetime or in our children's lifetime. So it's not as distant of a future as it may seem.
Some may not think about it in terms of climate change, in terms of sea level rise, but the reality is whether you're seeing the shoreline receding, you're seeing your properties get smaller, you're seeing different types of invasive algal in the water. Then there's the drought and our overpopulation of deer. When you look at the recent storms, how roadways get cut off, all of those things, climate change has a lot to do with it. And there's not any other planning efforts to help steer us into the future.
This plan is the first of its kind, and the purpose of it is to give our community an opportunity to determine what critical infrastructure we'll need to relocate or rebuild or re-envision for our future. Critical infrastructure such as our roadways, we have our water lines, we have our power lines. Right in town, we have our wastewater facility.
The goal of the plan is to create an action-based document that is Indigenous and community-driven and community-led. And so there's a core group of us that are facilitating it and helping to write the plan and do the community engagement. And we have consultants and experts in their fields who are helping us.
Pumping out to the pipe should come at different rates.
Sea level rise is definitely a threat to Molokai, but it's not something that will come quickly and change the landscape overnight, like how, say, a fire or a tsunami or a hurricane might. It's a slow-moving threat that we can plan for.
3 different levels.
The goal of this plan for us is to help provide the community on Molokai with tools to be able to understand the existing science and data that's available and the existing ways that people are adapting to sea level rise around the world.
It was really important to meet people where they are, meet them in their communities, talk story with them, show them our materials, and then be able to get their feedback.
I kind of feel like it's obvious we got to focus on KAA. I mean, that's our main town. We have a lot of our important infrastructure there. For sure, the wastewater system. Our main road is along the coast, so to me, that's another priority area. The schools that are in the area, too.
We really try to do a lot of community engagement and get everyone's input and feedback on this project, maybe things that they have seen over the years and maybe their ideas on strategies on what they think we could do. So we were able to visit all 4 communities, Mauna Loa, Ho'olehua, Kualapu'u, Kanakakai, and Mana'e. We also did mini focus groups after those workshops.
A lot of my ohana come from the East End, and we always heard stories of how awesome our resources were here, and to see what climate change and how it can affect us in the long run just kind of like hits home.
In the first community workshops, which was during COVID, we had to design the first set of maps just to show everyone what sea level rise could look like based on predictions. And we showed where the water could be and then also what roadways were affected. It showed cesspools and septic tanks and wastewater systems. It also showed critical infrastructure and hospitals, police, stores, places that are a lifeline for us that can be affected. And then the other thing that those maps show are where are the places that are safe after sea level rise? Where are places that certain communities could be relocated to if they want to?
In a while, there's how, there's KAA, but a lot of the trees have fallen down into the ocean already.
The long term is always to relocate. And I know a lot of our residents, they don't want to move. They want to stay in those houses that are multi-generational houses. So that's when we asked them, like, okay, can we do shoreline restoration, plant natives along our shoreline, maybe build the fish pond back in front of your house to kind of slow that down. So it's just trying to figure out strategies that we can do.
That used to be another fish pond. Yeah. So this one they would. So we did that first set of maps that went from Kalama'ula all the way to Halava and then Mo'omomi and Papohaku. We asked the community, what's your top priority areas for infrastructure, roadways, and cultural and natural sites? We got the results, then we went back to the community, had them narrow down the list, and then that's how we came up with the priority sites. The scope of the work was supposed to be 5 to 10 priority sites. We ended up with 13. And then the other part of coming up with the priority sites was speaking to all of the county departments, speaking to the state agencies, speaking to different community organizations to make sure we're not choosing areas that are already going to be addressed by another plan.
We're very concerned because we know this is coming and we need to have a good strategy to deal with it. So all state and county agencies, including federal agencies, need to be aware of this and working together.
Part of the plan as well is having Sea Engineering, who's our engineering consultants, come on island to Molokai multiple times to do site surveying, visual surveying, look at the erosion, look at the shoreline.
When we were there, we looked for anything that might be susceptible to the impacts of sea level rise. For example, critical infrastructure, any type of coastal uses. What's the existing vegetation like? What are ground elevations like? Soil types, and put them on the maps so that people can visually see the extent of each type of hazard.
There's a drainage swell here.
The second set of maps we did in 2022 had an additional scientific prediction, which was the coastal inundation zone. You know, all the wind, high tide, coastal, if it's raining at Mauka, if there's a storm, it really helped show everyone like what we really need to plan for. The other thing that we did with our secondary maps was show each priority site and show invasive species, where water comes down from Mauka, the current conditions of the land in relation to the ocean, and kind of just how everything works together.
So there is the modeling data that comes in one layer. We also help to figure out, okay, well, what kinds of resources might we want to show? And so you might have a layer that shows all of the highways. You might have a layer that shows all of the wastewater facilities. You might have a layer that shows fish ponds. You can kind of show that graphically with different colors so that people can kind of take it in and start to think about, you know, what it all means.
Dips down here where the stream is, so when there's extreme flooding, the water...
So the next part of our process was going through each site and figuring out, with the help of the engineers, just a list of options for the short-term, mid-term, and long-term mitigation and adaptation strategies. And what that means is just, what can we do? What can we do now? What can we do, you know, in 5 to 10 years? And then what can we do 50 years out? So that we have steps to take.
So the first round of workshops was really about getting people's input on which sites should be priority sites that we focus on. And then we took that input and we worked with our engineers to come up with mitigation strategies for those priority sites. And this round of workshops is really about getting feedback from the community on those mitigation strategies.
There's a lot of concern about, you know, what's going to happen to our place and, you know, the places that we grew up fishing and diving and, you know, gathering our resources from.
Two of our priority locations are residential, and a lot of these short-term strategies show like planting natives in your front yard or backyard to slow down the sea level rise impact. Some of our community members are already doing that, and it's a lesson that we as a community can start now, getting back into the fish ponds, getting back into farming, living off of the ʻāINA, living off of our makai as well, is something that we really need to do, and it's something that will also help us in the long run for our future and for our island.
What we've realized is that we need to incorporate indigenous science and traditional ecological knowledge. There's a lot of wetlands. There's a lot of opportunity to do nature-based solutions, to do shoreline restoration, to restore native species. Restoring those systems would actually make Molokai much more resilient.
We're looking at all options, not just introduced options, but traditional and indigenous place-based options as well. And it's going back to some of those things that did help previous to this current time, and that's what's really important.
There's a need for our traditional indigenous wisdom to be one part of a solidified, supported plan by the government that takes things like fish ponds, our ahupua'a system, and things that our kupuna have been doing for generations. And I think that this plan gives an opportunity for that kind of indigenous wisdom and knowledge to be implemented.
This plan and project was community-led and driven, and every time we went to the community and got their input, we would go back to our consultants and our partners, say what our community said, get their feedback, and then go back to our community and feedback to them what our partners are saying. So it was an ongoing process of going back and forth.
This planning effort needs to continue after this grant. And so just the importance of making sure projects get implemented and designs for projects happen. This is only the first phase in the process.
Good to see you guys. Oh, it takes years to plan, to design, to fund, and then construct. So I think Molokai is doing a great job of getting a head start, at least being able to identify what are the important areas and resources for the community, and to be able to start that planning process, to start that conversation.
They took pictures, they did all kinds of measurements.
And then to coordinate with the other agencies and organizations so that there isn't duplication.
Why it was important to have so much community engagement and solidify very deep.
After working on this plan and going through the process, it's a lot when you see how much is going to get affected. But at the same time, I think it's really hopeful. The strength is really being able to collaborate with all the other people who are doing good work. So the hope is that when our keiki and when our mo'opuna have to experience these effects, it's not catastrophic. It's not a disaster.
It was made by Molokai people, for Molokai people, for our island that we love. It's not an imposing of systems and values and government and strategies that are foreign to us. These incorporate all kinds of updated resources and technology that can be combined with the core values of who we are in Molokai. And for generations, we can build upon that using the very foundational building blocks that was given to us by our kupuna.
Okay, mahalo for that. And then we'll stop the screen share. And then I will welcome Ms. Williams and Ms. Mokuau to provide any additional remarks before we open testimony.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I hope that was okay for everyone to watch that documentary. It was done so well, and I feel like way more entertaining to watch that than hear us talk at you. We did put together a few slides that just hit a few highlights that were not covered. So if it's okay, I have a few slides I could share.
Yes,
okay, great.
Please proceed. Okay, we can see you.
Thank you. Okay, great. Okay, so I just wanted to, again, start with just kind of re-emphasizing this overarching goal, that really had these separate components that we tried to weave together. So I think you heard loud and clear in the video about our focus of having an Indigenous place-based perspective, really driven by Molokai ʻāINA and by longtime community leaders, incorporating appropriate technical land use planning and coastal engineering and all the science and the latest data that was available. We also really wanted to engage our next generation, right? So we both had staff at Sustainable Molokai who were, in their 20s and, recently kind of joining the workforce, which was great to see them really engage and take on ownership of the project. We also did presentations at the schools. So we went to Molokai Middle, we went to Molokai High School, we went to Aka'ula and presented there and had, a lot of the teachers were great at having their students come and engage that way. And then finally, just really ending up with something that is action-oriented. We've all seen plans that sit on the shelf. We're really hoping this is not one of those, and that we tried to give really specific next steps that could be implemented with future funding. Again, our partners, I think they were highlighted pretty well, but of course, Sustainable as the lead, our resource advisors, Malia and Matt, Townscape as our land use planners, C Engineering as our engineering consultants, and then of course all the support we got from Maui County. And this kind of just summarizes those phases that were shown in the video. Again, it was really like first identifying what was going to be 5 to 10 sites, ended up being a little bit more than that, ended up being 13. Then it was phase 2 of really we said, okay, we're tallying all the votes and we're putting them together and we're going to go back to the community to make sure we got it right before we go on and meet with our engineers and planners to implement, to look at potential strategies. Phase 3 was then designing those strategies and getting cost estimates for them. And then phase 4 was taking those back to the community and as well as putting them into the draft plan. So as you can see, this is a little bit old. We made this when we were wrapping up phase 4, but then we were able to finalize the plan in early 2024. I just wanted to highlight that I know it was mentioned that there was supposed to, well, originally it was supposed to be a sea level rise tour, like in person, right? And so with COVID, we were able to adapt that to a do-it-yourself tour, which was really cool. And if you guys have questions about that, we can come back to that. Heather really led that up. But it was just a really, I thought, really innovative way to engage people kind of on their own time. They could use their phones to scan QR codes and see all the maps and see physically, in reality, where sea level rise could be in the future. And again, just on the community engagement, we tried hard to not double count people who came to multiple meetings. And honestly, you know how it goes. Like, some people come to the first meeting and then other people hear about it and go, oh, wait, I missed it. So I'm going to come to the next one. So we had a pretty good, I think, scattering of different folks that came to different events. And I will say that in addition to those 4 kind of main set of meetings that we did in each of the 4 communities, we also went to events that were already happening. So, for example, the Kuala Pu'u Ohana Fun Fair, we went to set up a booth there. And, other meetings that DHL or other folks were hosting, we asked if we could come to them so people didn't have to come to other meetings. And again, we had a ton of information out on social media. We had, the videos, we had the maps that people could look at and comment on, even if they couldn't come to an event in person. So super exciting that in the end, we reached over half of the population, just that we were able to count. So I think that was pretty awesome outreach. And again, just showing that we had really good representation from all areas of the island. I think we all know Kaunakakai and Manaʻe will probably be the most immediately impacted. However, as we heard, everybody has to go to town to get gas, to get groceries, to use the bank, to, any of the things. So everybody on the island is going to be impacted. So we were able to get people from all of the different areas. We also had a really good span of age. And then we kind of wrapped up by showing this documentary to the community, just to thank them for all of their input and to just let them know that it was heard, that it was incorporated. And in the end, we ended up with 13 priority locations. And I just, wanted to comment that of those 13 locations, we really tried to break it down into 3 separate timelines. So one being like the immediate short term, like 1 to 3 years, what can we do right now? The second being more midterm, like 3 to 5 years. And then the third being long-term adaptation strategies or mitigation strategies for up to 20 years. And I just want to note that in addition to that, plenty of people were like, okay, this is great for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but in the long run, we're going to need to move everything, like town, the roads. And so we do have a section that talks about that, but we did identify that as a need for the future, to continue to have those conversations. So this is the list of sites. And as you can see, it's a mix of specific sites, such as the wastewater facility, the wharf, the highway in town. And then we also did these, like 4 and 5, I think are interesting in that, we tried to pick one coastal business example on the South Shore and one residential example on the South Shore, as well as an East Shore oceanfront example. And we did that because, there's obviously tons of houses along the coast. We couldn't specifically look at each one. So we just took one example and said, this can then be applied to other businesses or residences along the coast. So I think those are the main highlights I wanted to share. And then this is the map that kind of shows where the sites are. And then after that, I have all of the 13 sites here, but I don't think it's a great use of time to go through all of those. But if anyone would like to see them, we have them here, and they're also available on Sustainable Molokai website. And so with that, I'll see if Katie or Heather wanted to add anything.
I just wanted to add a quick little tidbit about the COVID phase of this. I think that's a huge part of realizing that really the engagement that happened for the first year and a half, maybe even, was during the height of the pandemic. And maybe Heather can share a little bit, but we really had to not just, we couldn't have any community meetings. We couldn't have any meetings even in buildings. So Heather really designed these strategies where we did pop-up tents in locations outdoors within the communities that people frequented and knew and felt comfortable at. Some were just on basketball courts at schools, and everyone stayed in their family pod for the first round. They had to stay in their car until the booth was empty, and then they could come, into that booth, and we had set up 5 or 6. That was wildly different from typical community engagement, but I think the thing that we really learned throughout that style was that the smaller groups really made a difference. People felt comfortable enough to share, history, family history, place-based knowledge within their family units. And then also, we ended up going back after COVID wasn't so crazy and we could actually go in buildings into regular community meetings, but they didn't work as well. So we ended up going back to what we originally did during the height of the pandemic, where we really did it outside. Heather designed a lot where we went into community events. So if there was a baseball game on Saturday in town and 3/4 of the island is there, we set up booths there. Or if there was Earth Day or some other fun fair, we did booths there depending on which part of the district it was. So it was a lot of just stop asking the community to come to us and go to them, where they're at, where they're comfortable. And I think in the end, we got a lot more engagement that way. So Heather, I don't know if you want to add anything else, but she was really the mastermind behind a lot of that alternative community engagement. She might be on me.
Ms. Place.
Aloha, I just wanted to kako what everybody, what Harmony and Katie said, and just highlight this project was very community-led and community-driven, and I am very proud of the feedback and the mana'o that was received from our community. So, yes.
Mahalo, Ms. Place. Okay. And with that, we will open public testimony. I see we have 4 individuals currently signed up for to testify. And let me grab my notes. Testifiers wanting to provide testimony should sign up in the chamber lobby, join the online meeting via the tiny URL link to connect to the Zoom meeting, or call in to the phone number and enter the meeting code noted on today's agenda. Written testimony can be submitted via e-comment link at mauicounty.us/agendas. For individuals wishing to testify via Zoom, please use the raise hand function by clicking on the raise your hand button. On the bottom bar, staff will ask you to enable your microphone and video prior to your turn to testify. You can unmute yourself when you're called on by clicking the microphone and camera buttons in your lower left portion of your screen. For those calling in, please follow the prompts via phone. Press *9 to raise your hand, and when it's your turn to testify, press *6 to unmute. Staff will add names to the testifiers list in the order the testifiers sign up or raise their hands. For those on Zoom, staff will lower your hand once your name is added. I will call the name you're logged in under, or at least the last 4 digits of your phone number when it's your turn to testify. If you wish to testify anonymously, please notify staff. Otherwise, please state your name for the record at the beginning of the testimony. Oral testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Staff has been monitoring individuals joining today's meeting by phone and by video, and we'll do our best to take each person up in an early fashion. The first testifier signed up is Kiyomailani Hirata, followed by Jantel Lindo.
Aloha ʻāINA kākou. Mahalo for allowing me to testify. And I just wanted to mahalo everyone who is a part of this climate change, sea level rise, adaptation, and resiliency master plan. For me, as on Kupa Aina from East Molokai, what this plan did was pull together our community on East Molokai that is seeing we're all along, we live all along the coastlines, and we're seeing, and we have been seeing the detrimental impacts of sea level rise and climate change. And everybody's been working in silos. What this project was able to do was hui our community together to come out and have the real conversations and start to talk story. Mana'e started to have their kupuna monthly community meeting where there's about 12 to 14 of our elders who are still living that come out to these meetings and they talk about real things that are affecting East Molokai. And at the top of the list is climate change, is the sea level rise. For our ohana who really lives Makai to Mauka in our Ahupua'a and have been land stewards since time immemorial there, they have started, my parents who are in their 80s, my father is saying we have to do something. He has completely dismantled everything on Makai side. He has taken everything that is man-made and he refuses to allow any of our opala or trash to end up in the ocean. So he has started over the past year doing things like that. But it has also brought him to go talk story with his neighbors and say, hey guys, what you guys doing to help on your side? How can we help each other? And then being a part of this planning process, Keani, Jan, Mahina, Harmony, Katie, and Heather, they did a great job with engaging our community and keep going back and forth and talking story and allowing our people to share the challenges and then also see what they can do and how do we help out each other. We're all in this together. So this plan and the vision behind it was super, super Maikai. And I just wanted to aloha all of you folks. Mahalo to Maui County, the council members for helping to support Ke'ani for this project. But yeah, that's all I wanted to share. Mahalo. Aloha.
Mahalo, Miss Hanapi Hirata. Any questions? Okay, seeing no questions. Oh, Member Sinensi, sorry. Member Sinensi has a question for you, Miss Hanapi Hirata.
Sure.
Mahalo, and thank you for your testimony. Yeah, what a great film. And I know my question is, you know, here in East Maui, we have the same issues. We have a couple communities right on the shoreline, Amoa and Waikoloa. And I know we did have a scare a couple weeks ago with the tsunami warning. Has this plan helped to, you know, how was the plan kind of, did it come into play during this tsunami warning?
So that's interesting, and mahalo for that question. So in East Molokai, before everyone would have one place to go to evacuate during tsunamis. Now they have broken up East Molokai into 3 different sections because our roads are falling in the ocean. And you can't pass during certain places. So really it is the community and the people who live out there that kind of make their own decision on how to, you know, where they go. Do they go Mauka across the street from where they live, Makai side, or do they actually get in their car and drive someplace, knowing that they'll probably get stopped at some checkpoint, turn around, and have to find another way? So, yeah, it's really the people out there in the community and the county. You know, there's a lot of good people, Jan, them in Mima and stuff, and everybody pretty much knows what to do. They all know how to talk story with everybody and kind of get everybody together. But yeah, so it's really, yeah, it's just really one kako effort out there.
Yeah, sounds like it. Mahalo.
Yeah. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Mahalo, Member Sinensi. Okay, seeing no other questions. Mahalo for your testimony. Next individual on the list to testify is Chantel Lindo, followed by Joycelyn Costa.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Councilmember Rollins Fernandez, Chair. Hi, everybody. I've been away for a long time. I miss you guys. Mahalo to this awesome ohana that works so hard for our community. Super appreciate you guys. Appreciate also the the opportunity to testify in support of and in appreciation of this community-based climate change and sea level rise adaptation and resiliency plan. This is an example of what can happen when we take the community's concern and then really create a community resiliency kind of excitement around what we can do to empower our community to be part of implementation. I think this is also a great example of how we encourage our community to be responsible for the changes that they hope to see and utilize government as it was intended to support the community in its thriving and abundance. So this is a great example of that. I think what I want to highlight, I agree with what everybody said and the presenters. I think I wanted to highlight also how instrumental Molokai was as a community while the world was shut down. You will see in the coming months that this is just one of many plans that was going on, and creatively saw how to strategize community engagement in so many different ways that by the time we were done with COVID, there were full-length plans and implementation strategies already being designed. So while the rest of the world was shut down, Molokai was like full force online and meetings, and we were having community meetings, and was so awesome. So just wanted to point that out, that this core group didn't stop because it was shut down. They actually expanded and created new ways of being able to engage community that I would also support other projects looking into and how to diversify on that. And then lastly, as going forward, I think one of the strengths of this plan was that it was very community district centric. And if there is an opportunity for the rest of the council and the rest of Maui County to implement these kinds of strategies, it really should be with a core group that originates from your district with the place-based knowledge and relationships that is necessary to hui up your specific community and implement strategies and goals and implementation actionable items that are specific to your district, both geographical, economical, and social. And I think that's a big part of how this strategy can work. If you try to take Maui as a whole, it won't work. And so we saw that taking Molokai and its very specific kinds of problems not only work for the immediate future, but also as we planning. And then lastly, the kako'o effort that needs to happen is that government needs to take a look at these plans that they implement and force administration to utilize these plans as a foundational planning tool to strategies and implementations that they want to put, so that we're not wasting our money supporting plans like this with huge community efforts and then not utilizing them when come time to plan for our own government strategies. So thank you guys. I miss you guys.
Always wonderful to see you. Any questions for Miss Lindo? Seeing none, looks like you covered it all. Mahalo. Okay, our next testifier is Joycelyn Costa, followed by Kahanavai Hirata.
Mahalo, Chair. And I did sign up to testify for Bill 107, and that'll come up later?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm glad that I did sign up early, because I thoroughly loved the video, number one. Number two, I'm hoping that our council members paid really close attention, because I think this would be the prototype on how to proceed in any business within this council chamber, which is not to be in the chamber doing business. I think when you go to the community and it's a community based, and not have the community come to you, talk to you, and then when they leave, you just make decisions in the room. I think, where we witnessed just recently, the community coming out and then the decision being made adverse from the community. I think it would behoove the council to do so. I wanted to know if within the plan, because our North Shore is being inundated with the sea rise and the exposure of our iwi kupuna, if there's something within that plan to help us to address that. And, I just went on a site visit yesterday, and I wish you folks would all come take a walk. because it's not something that is a pretty sight, but it is necessary for us to be truly realized. That's one, if the plan has something for that. And if that can be, back in the day, I was from day one of rezoning and the Wailea 670. There was a thing in there called Show Me the Water Bill. So can this be a thing in there that you need to implement anytime you have large developments coming in? Because, I can only imagine what that hotel in Kahului was feeling when the tsunami warning came in. And why would we even put something like that right in the ocean? I wouldn't even say on the beach, it's in the ocean. So if there can be some type of thing written, charter, I don't know how you guys run your business, but so that it would have to meet certain standards before they get any type of entitlements for any kind of big projects along our shorelines. And then the also, if you have definite plans on how you move forward with the wetlands, because when I'm looking at that video where the roads are all caving in, it's like, that's KAA, right? That's KAA. And so I just wanted to see if there's anything that you folks can do to slow down the progress in Maui and really do something for the people. Thank you.
Hello, Ms. Costa. Any questions for our testifier? Seeing none, mahalo for your testimony on this item, and we'll see you on the next item. Our next testifier is Kahenawai Hirata, followed by Nancy McPherson.
Aloha, everyone.
Aloha.
Sorry, my camera is not working today, but Aloha Council Member Rollins Fernandez and the members of the committee. My name is Kahenawai Hirata. I am testifying today to offer a profound mahalo nui loa to you, Council Member Rollins Fernandez, with the support from Maui County Council for the visionary support in funding and advocating the community-led study on climate change and sea level rise for our island of Molokai. I was an intern at Sustainable Molokai during the CCSLR project. I actively participated in the community outreach engagement, and this CCSLR project has inspired me in my current and future plans as a steward of my environment. I recently returned from the Ocean Uprise Summit representing Molokai. It's a summit sponsored by Parley, which is a global group committed to protecting our world's oceans. And one of the things they educated us on was sea level rise and climate change. And one of the most important lessons I carried home from that experience is that the ocean is the heartbeat of our planet. It regulates our climate, sustains countless lives, and provides for our communities. But just as the ocean gives to us, it also reflects the damage we cause. Climate change is not a distant issue. It is here and it is impacting us now. So in an era of global challenges, recognizing that the most powerful solutions are not imported, they are homegrown. So empowering our community to define our own future, to use both our ancestral knowledge and modern science to create a plan that is by Molokai for Molokai is super important. This leads me to, of course, the incredible leaders who turned that vision into a reality. So a huge mahalo goes to Katie Mokuau, Auntie Harmony Williams, Heather Place, Auntie Chantel, and Auntie Mahino Poi Poi. All of their dedication to facilitating this process, to listening, to guiding, and to ensuring every voice was heard was really the engine of this entire effort. They helped create a space of trust and collaboration for that. And for that, we as, the present generation, are internally grateful for that. So the support is more than just a paper to me. It is the mana between our community and our island. It represents countless hours of talk story, of shared concerns, and of all of our collective hope, honestly. But the work is not done. The true value of this plan lies in its implementation. So please continue to support the recommendations in this report. help us turn these community-born ideas into accountable projects or actionable projects that will protect our homes, our coastlines, and our way of life for generations to come. Mahalo for listening.
Awesome. Mahalo. Any question for our Opio? Seeing none. Mahalo kahenawai. Okay. The next testifier and the last on the list is Nancy McPherson.
Mahalo, Councilwoman Rollins Fernandez. Nancy McPherson, a planner with the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. And I just wanted to really support this project. We were really pleased that even though this is a county project, DHHL was included in the planning process and we were consulted with. We know that there are several sites, 11 and 12 in particular, where there's kind of an overlap with the county. Kapa'akea Cemetery is surrounded by Hawaiian homelands. Kalama'ula dump is right next to Ohiapilo wetland, and they're both on Hawaiian homelands. So we know there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration. There's synergy between DHHL and the county. We want to work together with the county on implementing solutions. We also are incorporating some of the data. We're going to, of course, give the proper credit, but from the CCSLAR into our Molokai Coastal Homesteads Community Resilience Plan. So the CCSLAR really inspired DHHL to get going on doing resilience planning for our lands in Kalama'ula, Kapa'akea, and Kamiloloa, Oneali'i, which is also Makakupaia, Ahupua'a. And so it was very inspiring. And we, a lot of our beneficiaries participated in the CCSLAR process, of course. And so then they realized, well, I guess we got to participate in this one too, because this is technically Hawaiian homelands. And so we just kind of expanded on a lot of things that were brought up during the CCSLAR process. We're really looking forward to getting a draft MCHCRP, and we'll definitely let you know when that's coming out. And we also are going to initiate, so the Hawaiian Homes Commission has sole authority over land use and zoning on Hawaiian homelands. That being said, we also do land use planning on an island scale. So we have a Molokai Island plan for our lands on Molokai. That's dated 2005, so it's due for an update. We're initiating that this fall with some due diligence and data collection. We're definitely going to be talking to, all the state and county agencies, and then looking at initiating community outreach in the first quarter, hopefully, of 2026. And so by doing that land use planning, we're also going to be looking at dealing with our vulnerable communities along the coastline. Are we going to need to put in new infrastructure? And we really want to collaborate with the county on those kinds of infrastructure issues to get our people out of harm's way. So mahalo for letting me testify, and really, really support the great work that the Sustainable Molokai did on this project. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Ms. McPherson. I see a question from Member Sanensi. Ms. McPherson.
Mahalo, Chair, and mahalo, Ms. McPherson. Just continuing on your conversation about state properties, were there during this process other state properties on Molokai that, if needed to expand infrastructure or move Mauka beside DHHL properties? If you're aware of them, any.
Ms. McPherson.
Oh, I think that's for the team to answer. I'm sure they talked to DLNR, folks like that, the DOE. You know, there's definitely a lot of. Oh, so one thing the state is doing, I also help represent the department on the State Climate Commission. And so I go to those meetings regularly. And the state is doing an infrastructure vulnerability analysis that isn't necessarily including the highways. I think state DOT is doing their own study, but so state facilities like Kulano EV, where our district office is, that sort of thing. So we are looking at those at the state level. So I'm sure DOE is also doing that and also part of that project. So if you're interested, I can get the committee more information on that study.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I can answer a little bit also.
Ms. Mokwell, we're going to finish public testimony first, and I'm going to close on.
Oh, sorry.
And then we'll open up deliberations, and then you can answer at that time. Ms. McPherson, I just wanted to ask a quick clarifying question, which is, what year did you folks start the vulnerability assessment, or for DHHL?
The community resilience plan?
Yes.
Yeah, we actually got a NIFWIF grant for that. And again, we were kind of suffering the after effects of COVID because we had been working on this South Molokai Shoreline Erosion Management Plan, the SM-SEMP, which our coastal homesteads, including Auntie Penny and a number of others, participated in. But, you know, we got slowed down because of COVID. And it was really hard we were trying to do things online. I wish we'd taken the approach that Katie and Heather had to engage with the community. That would have worked out a lot better. But so that kind of set our project behind. We technically were, the grant was approved in 2021, but we're still working on it and we're still coming up with the draft. We're hoping to finalize it by the end of the year, but we are going to come back out to the community to have them look at the draft and then go back to the Hawaiian Homes Commission as well.
Mahalo for that update, and mahalo for that important work that you folks are doing. Okay. Mahalo, Ms. McPherson. Okay, I'll do a last call for testimony. Anyone wishing to testify? Mr. Law is walking to the podium.
Aloha kakahiaka.
Aloha.
Luna ho'omolu. Rollins Fernandez. Oval Jesse Law. And I'm happy to see all the council members here today, as well as the OEV Resources Department. I really appreciate the presentation. I like the video. I just want to make a few points about the video. First is the name. Molokai Climate Change and Sea Level Rise Adaptation and Resiliency Plan. You got to know English real good to say that one. So I volunteered at Kokua, help come up with catchy an acronym. How about the Generation Ehiku Plan? Yeah, like I said, the presentation was excellent. Number one, whoever did that, my kaino. And one thing I noticed was the absence of kane in the video. And I'm wondering what is the ratio of kane to wahine in Molokai. And if it's like I think it is, then I volunteer for that too. I'm available. The Olelo Hawaiian word of the day is haunalele. If I'm saying that right. And on Google it says that means disruption. And I'm not sure if that's like a storm disruption or a disruption in the government offices here. Keani, you mentioned in 2019 when you first ran for election, I met you over there in Wailuku. You were having your first, I don't know what to call that. It wasn't a luau, but you were doing like a function to start the introduction. And I asked you, I was testing you, I asked you if there was, what you thought about the landfill, and you said that there are alternatives. So that was a good answer. And I'm interested in where in the plan that you talk about recycling and landfill diversion alternatives. This morning when I was getting on a bus, like I said, I'd like to visit Molokai. The first thing that I would look at is the recycling facilities there and what you guys do. Now I'm going to go back to my old groove and mention the churches. The LDS, the Latter-day Saints Church up in Pulehu, the trash can was full, overflowing out of the top. And the first thing I grabbed was a couple of cardboard boxes there. So I would like you guys to, and that might go with the faith-based homelessness plan that I'm going to review at the meeting today for housing solutions for homelessness. I believe your girl is, Chantel is going to that one too, so I'll try to make it. Yeah, so that's all about cardboard boxes. I know you guys are working on that, and I'm pretty sure Shana Gow is watching too. So forgive me if I'm naive to say that Molokai can save the world. I believe it can. We all can together. And one more thing is I hope you pay attention to what the Royal House of Hawaii is saying about the land divisions. Thank you for your time, and whatever time I have left, I save for the Hawaiians.
Mahalo, Mr. Long. Any questions for our testifier? Okay, seeing none. Mahalo for your testimony. Okay, we'll do another last call. All right, and then hearing and seeing no one speaking up, I could close public testimony now, or we can take a 10-minute recess and then come back and then close testimony. Preference? Okay, we'll take our morning break now, and then when we return, I'll close public testimony. Okay, it's 11:22, so we'll come back at 11:35. Okay, the KŌMIKE Aloha ʻāINA is now in recess till 11:35. Will the KOMIKE Aloha ʻāINA please return to order? It is 11:42 on August 21st. And I'll do a last call for testimony on our first item. Anyone wishing to testify may unmute at this time and raise their hand. I see Ms. Dene. Aloha, Ms. Dene. Are you wishing to testify on the Molokai Climate Change and Sea Level Rise Adaptation and Resiliency Master Plan?
No, I'm.
Okay.
Do I need to wait to testify until 7?
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I'll call on you then. Okay, anyone wishing to testify? If not, we're going to close public testimony. Any objections to closing oral testimony and accepting written testimony into the record?
No exception. No objections.
Awesome, mahalo. Okay, so public testimony is now closed at 11:43. We'll now open deliberations, and before that, I will share my plan. Okay, it's a little later than I anticipated, but I was going to do one round of questions for the first item and discussion at 12. Take a quick recess, no one go anywhere. We'll invite our resources for the next 2 items. We'll do a presentation, probably about 10, 15 minutes or less. And then do testimony, open testimony on both items, 106 and 107. And then close testimony on both items, Bill 106 and 107. And then do a round or 2 of questions. And then I'm hoping or intending to adjourn at 1 or by 1. Okay, any objections or questions about Chair's intention to move forward? Chair Lee. Okay, and then Member Sugimura.
I have a meeting at 12. Do you have a quorum? Because I really don't have any questions. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Member Sugimura.
I guess as I shared, I have a meeting at 12:30. So we'll hurry up to support you.
Sounds good. Okay. All right. Member Cook, did you have a question? Okay. Are you just counting quorum? Yes. Ms. Williams and Ms. Mokuao, and Ms. Place, if you'll please turn on your video. Okay. All right. I will open the floor to questions for our resource folks. We have Ms. Mokuao, Ms. Williams, and Ms. Place. Questions, members? And then this is the plan with all the maps that they work so hard on, that the community really engaged and helped to develop. So questions? Okay, we'll go with the voting members, and then we'll call on Member Hadrins. Member Cook.
Thank you, Chair. Very comprehensive and thorough. It's impressive. I'm really glad to see this today. There's so many different challenges with, Molokai, I recognize, and I didn't really know how low-lying the grounds are and how impactful this is initially. What are some of the potential plans for like cemeteries and other historic places that are going to be impacted?
Mahalo, Member Cook. And then also to Ms. Costa's question in testimony, the Molokai Burial Council was consulted, and we did, and Kapa'akea is one of the Kapa'akea Cemetery is a county-owned cemetery that is included in the plan. So I'll invite any of our resource folks to respond to the question, and I can add in anything after that.
And start a little bit. Sorry, hope you can hear me. For Kapa'akea Cemetery, that was is a county-owned plan. It's a kind of long, multi-step process. There's there's a few steps, but I think it is applicable to other locations. There was some steps for doing assessments, for working with some of the county agencies to figure out what was on file for long term. You know, that cemetery has been there prior to it, I believe, being county owned. It was previously a Japanese cemetery hire. So there's all of those things that is kind of laid out. And then also besides assessment, there was also steps for family and other members who are related to those who may be deceased, or maybe there is not family members any longer, or any contacts. So that was kind of all the things that came up during that time. But really, that location, which is probably applicable to others that have waterways or sea level rise or water inundation effects, really. That one is in the middle of three waterways that come down from Mauka. So it's just a matter of taking the steps to plan. There's probably going to have to be some removal, if not all, and relocation, and that's a long-term process. But also, I know Councilmember Rollins Fernandez and a community action group has been working on identifying a new county cemetery as well. But the things that we did hear from the community is mostly, you know, in places that they understand it's not a good place to keep, you know, the EV and burial sites and whatnot. They didn't have, you know, huge oppositions to relocating or figuring out alternatives, as long as it was done in the right way and the processes were taken and everyone was notified and looped into the process.
Thank you. The reason I asked that is like the roads and utilities are like just mechanical aspects of it. And this is such a deep personal aspect when people's ancestors, like when nobody's around now to basically relate to it. So thanks for blazing the trail on that, because we have that in Paia. We have that on the west side. It's different. It's from waves and stuff. So anyway, thank you.
Mahalo for that important question, and was one of the reasons that I wanted us to do that, because I don't think, you know, before this, people were even thinking about what to do. And so like the video and, you know, our resource folks stated, is we wanted to start planning before it became an emergency or a disaster, because planning ahead avoids the disaster, right? Go ahead, Member Cook.
Well, as she commented, the public being involved and engaged and basically recognizing, well, not being in opposition, being willing to recognizing that people are going to have to make some hard decisions in the future. So that's it for advanced planning. Thanks.
Mahalo, Member Cook. My dad's dad is buried there. So that's very personal for me. You know, like, what does my family want to do? Do we want to relocate? Is that something that's feasible for us? What are, you know, the community's options if not relocating? Like, what makes sense? So having that discussion and then having steps in place, as Ms. Mokuau stated, this council did support the Molokai site selection survey for a new cemetery, and we're well into that process of securing the land and then getting that new cemetery developed. Okay, any other questions? Seeing no other, oh, okay. Member Senensi and then Member Uhajins.
Mahalo, Chair, and yet to Member Cook's point too, they also have the cemetery down at Kalaupapa as well. So that's another historic site that would also have to be addressed. I just wanted to give Ms. Mokuau, she wanted to address the question about state properties.
Ms. Mokuau.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna add that. So I think this cemetery, much like a lot of places, probably have multi-layers because this cemetery is county owned, but it's surrounded by DHHL land, who also then has ownership of some of the waterway. I believe Nancy can correct me if I'm wrong. So it's multi-layered, right? And it's gonna take a huge state agencies plus county plus private and family to work together on some of the planning steps to go forward. And I think out of your question and the other state agencies that have been doing some climate action plans, DOT did do theirs. The thing that we had found during this planning process was that the roads they had identified, especially down Manae on the east side of Molokai, was very few in comparison to the reality of vulnerable locations. So some of the priority sites that are roadways were identified by DOT. However, they're still in process of working on some of those. One of them is now just a 1-lane highway. And as you know, there's easements and all kinds of other things that need to be taken into consideration in order to relocate a highway, and historical walls and all of that, those things, especially in Manae. But I think it would be helpful as committee members in general to kind of push along DOT in these respects, because Molokai is not highest on their priority list, in general, and there's not a huge population on that side of the island. But it does affect, the school buses going past every day, and it does affect the community. And I think those areas that were not identified on DOT's list was some of the highest by the community members that came out. We did meet with DLNR about other things and different lands they manage. There was also, I think, other groups like Molokai Wetland Partnership that's comprised of state agencies as well as community nonprofits and everyone working collectively. And I think a lot of those wetland restoration projects along the South Shore of Molokai has come simultaneously with this, and this has supported their efforts. So there's a lot of collaboration, I would say, that is necessary to move forward on some of these bigger issues, especially the wharf. There's not really many, I don't think there's any state planning yet happening for that. Thank you.
Mahalo.
Thank you.
Mahalo, Member Sinensi. Okay, I'll go to Committee Vice Chair Paulton and then Member Hodgins.
Thank you. I was wondering about the prioritization, if they were listed in order of priority, and about the wastewater treatment facility, if DEM shared the community's concern about the relocation, as well as the mitigation strategy of local ʻI'a and having to build higher walls for that. Those were my questions.
I can jump in on the prioritization. Maybe Katie and Heather could take the second one. I would say for the prioritization, it was, like I said, it was a really tricky thing. I mean, one thing we talked about was like, oh, we'll just do surveys and count, right? We'll just count people who voted for which sites. But as a resident and somebody that needs to use a wastewater facility, depends on the wharf for their food to come in, supplies to come in, depends on the road to be open to drive through it. It's pretty near impossible to say one thing is more important than the other. I will say that we did and Katie and Heather, you can jump in on this. I know we did do a tally, and it might be how we put them in order, but overall, it's really difficult to say one thing is more important than the other. And we wanted to just recognize that some things are, have different bureaucracies involved, right? We just talked about whether it's county or state or DHHL or federal regulations. So all of that comes into play as far as like, what are things we can do now, right? Maybe on a private residential versus things that are just going to take more coordination and planning. But yeah, I'll pass it to Katie and Heather if they want to jump in on that and the second question.
Sorry, can you repeat the second part of the question for us?
If Department of Environmental Management shared the residents' concerns about the need to relocate the wastewater treatment facility, they kind of seem like they're all good leaving it at Kanaha because the pipes could go underwater or something. I mean, I also would like it to be relocated, but I was wondering, because I thought you said you contacted county departments.
Yeah. So we talked to them about their wastewater inundation study that they had done of the sites, and also visited with the county staff and managers there on site. And like you're saying, their assessments do show that the facility is okay until between 3 and 6 feet of sea level rise, because their injection tanks will not be flooded. However, the staff there has emphasized how much every time the river in town floods, which is every big storm, typically once or twice a year, and other storms that happen, it completely surrounds their facility and sometimes inundates the ponds. I think on the inundation study by the county, that wasn't their top concern. They were just the overall factor was the injection wells being safe. And I think that's another reason that was one of the top priority sites in this plan, because not only will they be inundated surrounding it, but if no one can get to that facility to work there, or access and emergency vehicles cannot have access in the roadway fronting that, and that's the area that gets flooded all the time. That was a secondary layer that I don't think their inundation study they just looked at the actual facility, right? Not the surrounding area, not maybe the cultural sites surrounding it and things like that as well. So that was more of the community's concern during the process when we talked about the wastewater facility treatment plan. And it does serve, it does have lines going to town and some of the town areas, but the reality is that Molokai is mostly on cesspools and individual wastewater systems. So having, a split system and different alternative wastewater systems is very viable, because it's not connected to the whole island as some other larger cities might be, or some other, more populated areas. So there was different sites that had been identified in the process. The cost obviously is a lot if it's still an individual wastewater system, but the options for multiple and also alternatives was highly supported by the community. And also I think the other part of the interdisciplinary planning is the fact that the next few communities to the west of that is all DHHL communities. So they also can have an input in, you know, if there is multiple facilities, if there is land to relocate onto HL, there's got to be a whole bunch of interdisciplinary planning for that.
Mahalo, Ms. Makuel.
And then the last question was
sorry,
about...
Committee Vice Chair Bolton, the timer went off.
Okay.
You can state your question though. I'm interested, and then we'll go to the next one.
I stated it the first time. It was about the local EO walls.
Can anyone respond to that question very quickly? About it being higher.
Yeah, I can talk about that real quick. So we identified that building the local EO walls wider and higher can help slow down the water from coming more in for shorelines and decreases the amount of inundation in certain zone areas. So building those walls more wider and higher.
Thank you.
Mahalo, Ms. Place. Mahalo, Member Bolton. Okay, Member Hodgins.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for scheduling this for us to talk about. I found it very interesting, and the video was really beautiful. It was super pretty. But I do have two questions. So, and I guess they're more conceptual rather than like specific. So one thing I found interesting was basically it prompted the discussion, and this is on page 36, to relocate the main town of KAUNIKAKAI. Holy moly, what an undertaking. So one, how do you begin that? And how do you begin that conversation? Because it is a vintage town, not too dissimilar to like Paia. How would you begin that process? And I know it would take a long time. And then secondly, because I know our timer is, we're running, but the conversation that Member Cook brought up and you folks are talking about in the beginning about cemeteries, which is very important, that one is a county cemetery. So it's a little bit more in our control of how to figure out what to do with that. But for instance, in Paia, we have so many private cemeteries. Right next to my house, I think there's like 5, or my parents' house rather, including our own Kapule family cemetery that's right on the water. So what do we do for those private cemeteries, and how would we as a government assist those churches that we have so many of, like you folks do too? How would we help them if relocation is an option, if that's what they're open to?
And the question is for me.
Or whoever, I gotta look at somebody while I talk. So it's either you or whoever else.
Okay, I'll start with the cemetery question first. And I think, you know, like one of the things that was emphasized by the Well Done video and our resources is that it's a place-based, you know, like it's really the community there that should make that decision. The church and their membership should make that decision. And then, you know, figure out what the plan will be moving forward. And then from there, once a decision is made, looking at all the different options. That's why when I was reading it, one of them was, when I was reading the scope of work, perform a cost-benefit analysis for each proposed sea level rise adaptation project plan. The analysis should consider future costs. So, you know, like the immediate costs and then like what the costs would be down the road, right? Whether, you know, it's monetary costs or like what we're experiencing now, which is, can't really be quantified. Like what's happening right now should not be happening. It's like beyond tragic. And so, you know, I think figuring out a plan first and then like figuring out the next steps. And then, you know, like these are the problems of today. So even if these weren't things that, you know, the county supported in the past, if this is what our community needs now, then, you know, I mean, I believe that that's what we're here for. We pool our community's resources in order to meet the needs of our community now. So I think, you know, like having the discussion and then making a decision. is always like the best steps to take. And then your first question was regarding moving Kaunakakai town. And that's not a new discussion. It's been something that's been discussed. And, you know, like the first step is getting control over our ʻāINA. And that is part of, you know, the acquisition of the lands held by foreign base Google company. And then just, you know, having options, because right now there isn't that much lands available to relocate our town, to relocate other things. So I think with the steps that Molokai Heritage Trust is taking now, it kind of opens up options for us. And then, you know, like the cost will come later. That'll be a later discussion on like what the transition looks like. And then if our resource folks wanted to add anything, I invite you to.
No, I think that's pretty much it. I would just reiterate that it did come up in pretty much every meeting as like something that needs to be talked about. But we were like, okay, well, we have a focus for right now to get these priority sites. And yes, we hear you, and we're putting it in our long-term planning section of the plan as a to be another plan, or to be continued. So definitely acknowledge it as a whole process unto itself.
And I think really quick, one last thing is that, you know, moving state and county facilities as an initial priority, because they are in inundation zones and provide emergency and other services, that did come up as being a higher priority, right? Private businesses are one thing, but moving county and state facilities and having options to be able to do that, as Cami said, through other processes is what was definitely identified. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your folks' answers. It's not too dissimilar from, you know, where I grew up. Paia is right on the water. And we used to have an upper Paia and a lower Paia, and upper Paia no longer exists. So for us, the concept is not too foreign, but I think it would be, just like Kaunakakai, it would be a major undertaking, but gotta start somewhere. But thank you.
Absolutely. And again, the master plan was supposed to start with Molokai, but not end with Molokai. So, you know, if this is something that your community wants to prioritize, I look forward to supporting the funding of that work. Okay, so any other questions from the members? I don't see any hands. I just wanted to follow up on two things. One, that at the community meetings, workshops, tours, Sustainable Molokai partnered with Molokai Hunting Club to provide locally sourced deer meat to feed the community. So mahalo for doing that work in keeping it local and helping, while simultaneously attracting people with food. The question is for Ms. Place regarding the science tour, because as everyone alluded to, that was ingenious. So I'll quickly state what it is, and you add any. What Ms. Place, her idea was to put up signs along the line where the Slorexa line, to show people in real time where it would be where sea level rise would impact our community, how far up. And then there are QR codes that folks could scan and then do a survey, see the maps, provide that input. Ms. Place.
Yeah, so I came up with this DIY walking tour that our community could participate in. And so that involved different stake signs throughout the island, from Kaunakakai, actually from Kalamu'ula all the way down to Kumimi on our east end Molokai. And these signs indicated different sea level rise depths, including the 3.2 feet of the Slorexa of the sea level rise, and different color flagging that would indicate these different depths. And what the community members could do was go to these signs, read it, get information, but also scan a QR code that would show them where different stations were located. A lot of these stations were also located at stores, local grocery stores, local businesses that they visit on a day-to-day basis to know and visualize where the sea level rise and where our waters will potentially be. And it really got the community to really participate in this activity and really visualize where the sea level rise would actually be shown in the near future. So,
Mahalo, Ms. Place. Okay. If there aren't any other questions, I'm gonna defer this item. Okay. All right. So, any closing remarks, Ms. Williams, Ms. Place, Ms. Mokual?
Just mahalo. Thank you all for your time and questions. And yeah, it's an honor to work on this project.
Mahalo again, Ms. Williams, Ms. Place, Ms. Mokwal for your hard, and the community for everyone's like really hard work on this continued process, but for this component of, ongoing process for Molokai. So mahalo nui. Okay, members, if there are no objections, we'll defer this item. Any objections? Okay, great. All right, and then we'll say aloha, hui hou. We'll take a 2-minute recess, and so we can invite up our next resource folks. We'll take up Bill 106, naming Mapulehu Cultural Preserve, and Bill 107, naming Hamakualoa Cultural Preserve. We'll do a presentation first, and then we'll open public testimony. We'll take a 2-minute recess. It's 12:14 on August 21st. We'll reconvene at 12:16, so please don't go far. The KŌMIKE Aloha ʻāINA is now in recess. Will the KŌMIKE Aloha ʻāINA please return to order? Okay, it's 12:21 on August 21, 2025. And we are on the second and third item of today's agenda, Bill 106, naming Mapulehu Cultural Preserve, and Bill 107, naming Hamakualoa Cultural Preserve. Again, my intention is to take up these two items at the same time as they're similar in action. Are there any objections? Mahalo, members. Member Bolton.
Oh, I just read one of the testimonies on it, and I think they were saying about the Hamakualoa, if it could be a biocultural reserve, because it's like still interacting with people like a living thing, but they weren't sure with the Mapulehu one. And I know we have kind of a definition for the cultural preserve, but does that matter if there was a request for one to be a biocultural reserve?
Mahalo, Committee Vice Chair Bolton. We'll take up the items first, do presentation, and then we can deliberate.
Okay, so
testimony, and then we can close testimony, and then we can have that discussion.
It doesn't matter if one would be a different one. It doesn't matter.
It was posted as the same.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. But if you have an objection to us taking them up at the same time, then we can separate it.
I mean, if we take it up at the same time, it doesn't mean the outcome has to be the same, right?
Right.
Okay, then I don't have an objection.
Okay. Mahalo, Committee Vice Chair Bolton. Okay, joining us today for so the bills that were posted, 106 and 107 are unsigned, but we do have the signed copies with staff. Joining us for both items today are Director Kapono'ai Molitau and Deputy Director Kekaya Robinson of the Department of Oiwi Resources. They have a presentation ready for us, so I'll invite them to provide that presentation. And then I'll ask members to please hold their questions until after public testimony is closed.
Ai velina mai ke aloha ia kākoa pau. Aloha.
Aloha.
Sometimes I love technology. So we have a very short presentation to share with you. And thank you, the Deputy Director, for putting this beautiful slide deck together. And it is on Bills 106 and 107, naming Mapulehu Cultural Preserve, as well as Hamakualoa Cultural Preserve. So in front of you, you have the bill, Mapulehu Cultural Reserve 12.40.320, refers to the area identified in Tax Key Map 5257008-076, located at 8303 Kamehameha the 5th Highway, Kaunakakai, Molokai, Hawaii. There is a map in this particular area in its location. It's in that orange square. After listening to earlier testimony about sea level rise, this becomes part of a very important topic matter. This particular area is the area that is currently owned by the County of Maui under the Office of the Mayor, and that is that Mapulehu site. These are a few images of what the Mapulehu area currently looks like, and the area that is in regards to making it a cultural preserve because of its archaeological features, as well as very high sensitive area for our sensitive sites. Here we also have an image of the well system, as well as the old glass house that once stood there. Now it is all being overgrown by haulekoa as well as other types of plants. 4107, Hamakoloa Cultural Preserve, identified area and tax key maps 27007-079. I won't go through all of them, but located in Haiku Sugar East subdivision lots 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6, Maui, Hawaii. Provided for you is a map. The orange section is the section that we are referring to at Hamakoloa. A little closer look, lots 1, 3, 4, and 5. Those are the areas of concern. We noticed that as we've done our study that there is not a lot of a study in terms of archaeological features. And part of the reasoning behind that is in order to get a comprehensive study, it would usually entail the request for future kinds of development there. The mission of the Department of OEV, again, is to protect the cultural resources of Maui Nui in order to reinforce our community connectivity with Hawaiian knowledge, to uphold and advance the rights, responsibilities, and stewardship of OEV resources, ensuring their protection, sustainability, integration into governance and community lifestyles for the benefit of present and future generations. So these are the three divisions that we over at the Department of OEV run through. And one is the Kipuka Division, safeguarding and stewarding lands of concentrated natural and cultural importance to ensure enduring access to healthy natural resources, space where our community can thrive. Our Paikaleo Division, upholding Olelo Hawaii as the other official language of Hawaii. And our Komu Waiola, caring for our natural resources that don't have voices for themselves, that include the kai, that include the ʻāINA and the vai, and the lani. This concludes our short presentation on the culture preserve sites of 106 and 107. Himoni no kaoko. Any questions?
Mahalo nui, Director and Deputy Director, for assisting with that presentation. We're gonna open public testimony first, and then I'll open the floor for questions. Okay, so let's see, we have our first testifier is Joycelyn Costa. Okay.
Mahalo, Chair.
Followed by, Lucian Dene left. Okay. Kalame, you may proceed.
Okay. In short, I strongly support the 106, which is funny because the 106 is all about preservation, right? So, and I also strongly support 107. As you could imagine through those maps, the inundation we had with plantation settlers there in our area. And so no wonder you have a hard time finding our sites. However, there are maps that will reveal them. There are maps that will reveal who the families are that belong there. And I know of some family members already, lineal descendants, who have been working really hard on the property to propagate native plants before we start to think about doing anything, although it may be useful, but foreign ideas to the ʻāINA. And I think the first thing we need to do is heal that place from all of its injuries, from historical trauma. And we all know whatever affects Mauka will affect Makai. And that entire shoreline is rich in fishing. Even if it is a cliffside, I'm born and raised Haiku. My father, he fished from Hana all the way to Maliko. So he is very familiar, although he cannot traverse any longer. He's going to be 90 soon. But my brother has taken on that kuleana, and he's taught several on the different places to traverse. And also there was a concern about how the water was going to get there in order for us to propagate better, the native species. And what better way than to have kuleana there, and especially lineal descendants who have particular rights. And so as there's more awareness of opening up waterways and letting water flow to the ocean, I think that will make it a highly prosperous endeavor if we have lineal descendants and kuleanas there. So I think, and I'm not sure the details on what this cultural preserve will allow, but I think the community, especially the Kanaka, that have moved forward with this area, already have a plan and idea of a cultural, not so much a preserve, because when you think of preserve, then you kind of like formaldehyde the place, right? They're wanting to thrive the place. And so they're putting in things that they know in the future will be beneficial for the community as well. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Ms. Casa. I see a question from Committee Vice Chair Paulton.
Thank you, Ms. Costa. I just was wondering, like, I think that's what the other testimony I read said. So if a biocultural reserve was to be like not formaldehyde, but more like trying to preserve the culture in a living way, is that something that you would support adding the words or the 3 letters?
I believe what we've done is saturated our ike to the point of languaging it to say biome when kuleana says it all. I think if we're going to be cultural, then we should be cultural because it dilutes the intention of how we steward the land. And it's not saying anything against whoever may have made that suggestion, but I think we need to now move forward with a specific intention, and that would be to malama ʻāina and do kuleana. Mahalo.
So to clarify, not even calling it a cultural preserve, but call it kuleana? Is that?
Well, cultural preserve is something easy on the ear, and I believe maybe we could come up with language. Maybe this council can come up with better language that better fits what our culture represents and its intention when it touches ʻāina, because we call ourselves KAA, and I don't mean to impose myself upon the council about religion, but in my studies with indigenous theology, I always wondered why we did that. And there are things, right, about saying kekiʻokaʻaina. But in actuality, when God created Adam, he was the father, and we need to remember who the mother was earth. He made Adam out of dirt. And so I believe that is where our intentions are in Kanaka, that we are the lepo, and the lepo is us. And so I think kipuka, pu'uhonua, but definitely kuleana. We need to bring our language and our intentions back into exactly what we're trying to do here. And so I would rather stick to that. Mahalo.
Thank you. I'm not sure I agree of trusting us to come up with the name, but thank you.
Well, that's why we have the OEB department here to help advise us. We are all haumea, and haumea is all of us. Mahalo for your testimony, Ms. Costa. And with Mapulehu, it is also a healing-based initiative. So mahalo for highlighting that. Okay, I see we have new testifiers that signed up. Ms. Dene did indicate in the chat that she had to leave. So we'll go to the next testifier, Maile Davis, followed by Jean Durua Lindo.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. Just found out about this today, so feeling a little off-centered. So would just love to share that I'm with Malama Hamakua Maui, and we've been working with the county in the space that you're talking about renaming, but we were actually unaware of a bill and a name change. And as we are cultural based and our board consists of lineal descendants, I think this is something that we would be for, but don't know a lot of information about and actual not super familiar with what's going on with biocultural or cultural preserve. So would like to learn more to offer testimony, but I realize that's too late. But we have been on the land since 2017 as a nonprofit in partnership with the county cleaning and doing restoration, and have been patiently waiting for a cultural survey. So I don't know if there is a disconnect, but we do have info and we would love to share with anybody and talk more about it. But obviously for anything that protects the cultural aspects and historical aspects and anything pertaining to that within the area that we've been stewarding. So thank you for your time and consideration on helping with that aspect.
Aloha, Ms. Davis. Mahalo for your testimony. Oh, let me turn off the timer. I take responsibility for you folks not knowing e kalamai. And I do look forward to working with you and the group. Okay. Any questions for Ms. Davis? Okay, seeing none. Member Bolton.
So I guess I'm not 100% sure how this is gonna go, but would it be appropriate to ask her to be a resource if she has that knowledge of being on the ground?
Any objections? If Ms. Davis, are you available to stay on?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so if there are any questions moving forward, Member Senensi.
Thank you, Chair. And just for clarification, we're not there. The Malama Hamakua is helping to steward the property. We're not changing like anything that they're doing on the property. It's just the naming of the site. Yeah.
Every year I see them come and ask for funding, and I always thought that was so inappropriate that there isn't just an automatic funding mechanism that was supporting them, that's supporting us. And so that this is part of the intention of naming it, so that we're making it a facility that gets resources, because having the nonprofits come and they're the ones that's doing the work for the community that should just get funding.
Mahalo for that clarification.
Mahalo.
Thank you.
Okay. Next testifier is Jean Durua Lindo, followed by Kaneali'i Williams.
Aloha, mahalo again for this opportunity. Your second favorite testifier here today.
We're so lucky we get to see you again.
I aspire to be one of these days, but two is good. So just wanted to stand in support of the intention of what you all are trying to do, what you're trying to do, Chair, in regards to Bill 106 and 107. I think the intentionality behind those things is so awesome. I think what I would like to see is the council and administration put more effort into proper categories of our protective lands that may not be covered right now with appropriate kinds of safety structures. So one of those examples is Mapuleho, for instance. Like some of the questions I would have is, because there's no other mechanism except for cultural preserve that now would protect, because the council doesn't have a cultural overlay or we don't have any other kinds of designation, this is treated like an open space park. And with those kinds of categories, you're at risk of other things too, right? But that's the best category to fit this in right now in order to protect what we have to protect. My worry is that if you treat it like park or open space, there is opening for vendors and people who may not be from Molokai or who may not be vetted in the most appropriate way for the actual area that we're talking about, and also not have complete community interaction and resources that would be appropriate to care for this place. So I'm looking forward to Director Molitao and the department to safeguard us until such time as we have the appropriate designations and safeguards that actually accurately not just protect our ʻāINA and the sensitive cultural and archaeological kuleana there, but also that tie our families back and encourage our communities and our ohana that are responsible for those things to be empowered. And then I also, one last thing is just, I would like for the record to ensure that those ohana and people who have been already caring for these two places in specific are the start of the conversation and are not forgotten, because there are, especially on Mapulehu, there are several families who have been already caring for Iwi Kupuna and who have already been lineal descendants of that place that absolutely should not be forgotten out of the conversation. And I would just like to give voice to that. And mahalo you all for all your hard work. Thank you. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Ms. Dudwalindo. You my number one testifier. Don't tell Auntie Laurie. Okay, next, oh, sorry, any questions for Ms. Dudwalindo? Okay, seeing none. Okay, oh shoot. Okay. Next testifier is Kaneli E. Williams, followed by the last testifier on our list, Jen Mather.
Aloha, can you folks hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, aloha kako. So as far as the cultural preserve concerning Hamakualoa, I kind of just found out about this on Facebook. I was scrolling and I seen the live and I was like, oh, they're talking about Hamakualoa. No, this is my moku over here. And then I seen the map that was presented and noticed that it does pertain to East Koyaha, where is my kuleana. My ohana is, we are the Arizona Lopi to Land Commission Award 33336, road pattern 2194. I took a screenshot of the map that was presented, and it does appear that some of that cultural preserve overlaps with Apana 5 of our Ohana's Land Commission Award. There is a current litigation occurring that does involve those parcels as well. That is part of Richard Armstrong's Royal Patent 383. Our Apana 5 of our Land Commission Award is bounded down there. I'll read it to you folks, just so you guys know. So it says, this is in the foreign testimony for Nalopi's kuleana. It says, number 5 is bounded Mauka by the ili of Luo'opu, Ko'olau by the pali of Kaupakalua, Makai by the seashore, and Wailuku by Kuya, West Kuyaha. And so that entire seashore between Kaupakalua through East Kuyaha to West Kuyaha, up Mauka to the ili of Luo'opu is our Ohana's kuleana. And so I don't know really enough about this bill to support it. I'd like to learn more, but I'd also like to be at the center of this because this is my Ohana's ʻāINA. Yeah. And so, and one of my concerns, of course, is with whatever the county is doing, is us as lineal descendants, are we going to be arrested for going to our kuleana lands down there? Because, you know, we have this issue going on in this county right now with that exact issue of arresting Kanaka on kuleana lands by the county of Maui. And so this is very, very personal for me because it's dealing with my Ohana's kuleana, where my koko is from. And so that's all I want to say for now. I need more information. Like Auntie Justin mentioned earlier, the lineal descendants need to be brought into this from the beginning, and we are the ones that should be directing what happens. And if we say no, and that's how it turns out, then that's the answer. I hope everything will be pono moving forward with this, but we can only hope. So that's all I have for now.
Mahalo, Mr. Williams. Committee Vice Chair Bolton.
Just checking if you would like to be our resource, not in the terms of like providing resources, but in order to be a part of the discussion if he has time.
Yes.
Members, any objection to designating Mr. Williams as a resource person? Okay, mahalo, Mr. Williams, for joining the committee for this discussion today. Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll go on to the last testifier on the list, Jan Mather. I saw you on.
I'm here.
There you are. Turn on your video.
It says I can't. It always says I can't. It's always better that I don't anyways. Okay. So I'm just going to stand on my written testimony. And then I just want to reiterate that what Ms. Lindo said is basically what I wish I was smart enough to say, because she's exactly kind of outlined everything that I tried to put in my testimony. But it's basically about a biocultural reserve being something that's a little bit more intentional about how we interact and then protect those places, because cultural preserves, as like the ordinance states right now, it's too broad, right? It doesn't create these kind of protections that we need to be in place to allow lineal descendants like Kaneali'i and contemporary stewards like Hamakualoa Maui to steward those landscapes. So stand on my written testimony, and then if you have questions, you can ask Ms. Lindo, because she seems to understand what I wanted to say better than I did. So mahalo.
Member Posey.
Sorry, I got a question for you. So I was asking Ms. Costa about biocultural reserve as the word, and from what you said about Ms. Lindo's testimony, it's not necessarily the title or the word, but more so the intention or the language in what a cultural preserve does, that it would be more interactional and lineal descendant guided by. So is it that not necessarily the words or the title, but the bill, what the cultural preserve definition is, that should be altered a little bit?
Yeah, I don't think it has to be, thank you for the question. I don't think it has to be a biocultural reserve, right? Whatever we name this, it needs to just be tightened up so that our intentionality towards how we're approaching these places is more, not prescriptive, but you know what I mean? Like, this is what we're going to do with this place. This is how we're going to do it. These are the people that are going to do it. And I guess, like right now, the bill that says sets up the cultural preserve says agricultural uses, cultural preserve, like archaeology and things. And when we look at some of the preservation plans that are in place, like those things aren't being enacted on these spaces as well. So it's like trying to make sure that what we're saying is what we're doing as well. I don't know if that answers your question.
If I could clarify, like, if what you mean is like a marine life conservation district, like Honolulu is a marine life conservation district, but there's not really rules except for you can't remove anything from the marine life conservation district, even if it's like invasive species or whatever. So is it like you're saying cultural preserve is like the overarching, but each cultural preserve needs to have its own independent rules specific to that area? Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, maybe, or creating like different types of cultural preserves. So you have this umbrella term of this is a cultural preserve, but then we've got maybe a biocultural preserve where we are interacting as people with that area, restoring, regenerating, doing agroforestry and things like that. And then you have another kind of cultural preserve, which is like an archaeological cultural preserve. So that's more about like not degrading those sites and malamaing those sites and doing like adaptive reuse of those. So maybe it's something that we just have to tighten it up and be more intentional in how we're directing our interaction with them.
Okay. I love your earphones.
Try not to disturb other people in the office, but still doing it. Thank you. Oh.
Mahalo, Member Fulton. Seeing no other questions, mahalo, Ms. Mather. I'm glad the video worked. Okay, calling for any last testifiers. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. JC Law, Waikoa, Ahupua'a, Kulauka. So I wasn't going to get involved in this because it's like, sounds like a Hawaiian discussion. Speaking of words, I know Keane always says words matter. But when I heard Ms. Costa, I appreciate all the testifiers, but especially when she started talking and the word historical trauma. September 2nd, 1838, Queen Liliuokalani was born, and she was born in the year of the Earth Dog. You talk about Keiki ʻāINA, she was the Keiki ʻāINA. So I want to take this opportunity. I was going to write a letter to Shane Sinensi, but he'll save me some time right now to say it. And then Mr. Molotel, Kalamai, if I won't try to correct you. I'm not going to force words on, but you're probably reading from one of the limahana that works for the county that said the county owns that land. And I like especially when Mr. Williams started talking about Kuleana. And Shane's been using the word property rather loosely, and I'd like to just say, please, try to choose your words carefully, because it's he ali'i ka'aina, he kauwa ke kanaka.
Okay. Mahalo, Mr. Long. Seeing no hands for questions, well, thank you for your testimony. All right, last call for testimony. If you would like to provide testimony, please unmute yourself at this time and you may start speaking. Hearing no one speaking up to testify or raising their hand online, are there any objections to closing oral testimony? Okay, mahalo members. So oral testimony is now closed, and we'll continue to accept written testimony into the record. So I'm just doing a time check. It's 12:54. We are at bare quorum. My intention was to move the bills along because the bills were just the naming of the area. But I'll take responsibility for not reaching out to Malama Hamakua Loa Hui. So that was my fault. And so I'm happy to continue this discussion into the next meeting. But so folks understand, in drafting this to legislation, and I know that there's interest in doing something similar to other, ʻāINA, that I'm super open to. But this was the start of a discussion for us to have to do the necessary protections. And whether it's in Title 12, Title 19, or other areas in our code, this conversation has been overdue. And so in Puamana being designated as a cultural preserve, I use that as a model for the needed attention to these two other areas, Mapulehu and Hamakualoa. Because when you see people out in the street, people just are people until you know their names. And once you know their names, they're no longer strangers. And that's how I feel about ʻāINA. When you name it and you've come familiar with it, then it's not just land out there. It's not just a sea of people. Now they become part of us. They're part of the ohana, part of our friends, and we have a relationship with it. We have kuleana to it because these parcels have been held by the county for years and have been neglected. We have community organizations that have been stewarding and taking care of these areas, but not the county. Sure, we've given some grants here and there, but we really need to step up. And that's the intention with these two bills. I understand that this is not a perfect fit under Chapter 12, which is parks and facilities. But the intention was healing-based, was giving these areas the attention it deserves, the funding it deserves, the resources, and then the rules. And part of the rules that were kind of discussed in testimony was the intention, because the rules that are needed or wanted by the community for Mapulehu may not be the same for Hamakualoa, may not be the same for Puamana. And so that's why I kept it broad, so that it's a place-based developed code of conduct for that area. I don't like the word preserve necessarily either, and I don't want an English word, honestly. And we have OEV department that can help guide us for the words that make sense for the intention that we are doing, which is protection, which is building relationship, which is awamu kuleana. So preserve is just a placeholder right now, so that we can have immediate attention to these areas. And then in the future, we'll have a stronger plan for the necessary resourcing, rules, relationship, kuleana, for these areas and other areas that I know that others would like to see receive the same attention. And I'm using these words intentionally because I know you have park. What does park mean? What does preserve mean? What does biocultural preserve mean? What does designation mean? All of these words are just words until we give them life and we make them, we define them, and we say what these words mean in context of what we're doing. So if members would like, I can call on OEV department to provide any initial mana'o based on some of the conversation we've initially had in testimony. Yeah, okay. Director, Deputy Director.
Hi, mahalo. You know, when I look at this particular thought, what I'm sitting with is making sure that we collectively think about the entire approach in order to give you the correct phrasing, right? There are some phrasings that have come up, kipuka, puhonua, as potentials. But I want to make sure that I sit down with our team and think about all of the thoughts that go into the mana'onui, or the main thematic theme of caring for space like this. That way, when we do go ahead and submit it to you folks, there is some grounded wisdom to that. And we're just not going to ho'olaha it right now just because we want to hear something. So if you don't mind, Chair, giving us a few days to go ahead and vala'au with our hui, and really think about the different areas that this is going to affect, because that's really going to set the precedence for moving forward on how we care for these wahipana, these wahila'a, these wahikupuna, and yeah. Hikino. Okay.
Mahalo, I love that plan of action. Member Senensi has a question, and then anyone else with questions?
Mahalo, Chair, and mahalo for bringing this up and for stating your intentions. And when hearing all the testifiers, we too in East Maui, Kina have also these cultural sites as well that we want to continue to protect. But my question was, in some of the testimony, there were things that people were requesting or seeing activities that will be included in some of this. Well, to JC's point, mea ʻāINA. So, like, if some of these preserves were bought with open space funding owned by the county, then it restricts certain things that can be done on the properties. And by renaming it, do we also change whether it be zoning or the type of things that can happen on these paheola'a? So those are some of the questions to what we ponder on these that I would want to discuss. Thank you, Chair.
Mahalo, Member Sinensi. My understanding, and Corp Counsel can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's just a name right now. It's not changing zoning. It's not changing anything, the use necessarily. But if that's wrong, we can. Okay, Corp Counsel said I'm right. Can you say that into the mic? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Hi, Chair. Christy Trenholm from Corp Counsel. Yes, that's correct. And it's just a name, and there are still, cultural overlay district ordinances and those things in place.
Mahalo, Ms. Trenholm. Oh, no, you're not Trenholm. Sorry. The other one.
No, it's Trenholm. There's a lot of Christies in our office. Not Tarnstrom.
Okay. Oh, yes. Okay, I had it right. Very good. Okay, Committee Vice Chair Paulton. And then before I call on Member Cook, I know Member U'uhajens isn't a voting member, but this is her district, so I wanted to call on her next.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for stating your intention. And yes, it's long overdue. I did also want to hear, as we heard from the Director of OEV Resources, the folks connected to Hamakua as to their thoughts of moving forward and the possibility of collaborations on what we ultimately want it to look like. As we heard from OEV Resources, to also hear from Ms. Davis and Mr. Williams as to their thoughts on the intention.
Okay, and then as much as possible to try to keep it to the naming of the facility, and not like the planning of the use, because it's just the naming for now, for these bills. Okay, Ms. Davis and Mr. Williams, if you would like to share some mana'o based on Member Paulton's question. Ms. Davis.
Hi.
Okay.
I'll try to keep it to the naming. Thank you for including me in this conversation. I think the name, open space in general in the county is pretty open and wide open, and really narrowing it down to a cultural place is where we are going as a board as well, as we take care of the land. So I think that we would be in support of that. To be honest, I'm not up to speed biocultural, cultural, and I would like to learn more before I spoke to that aspect. But as far as the name, as long as it stays the same, I have several state and county grants, but it seems like the space stays the same. So I'm assuming that won't affect it, as Corps Counsel said. So I can't speak for my board, but I'm pretty confidently can say that adding the cultural aspect to the name, we would be very, very open and in support of. That's our intention, to bring more to that area.
Mahalo, Ms. Davis. Mr. Williams.
I'll have to my camera on. Yeah, for me, like I said, I don't have enough information about this whole thing in its entirety. Like, I was not even aware. So it's like I'm looking at the map and I'm just processing. And I mean, I do imagine a pu'uhonua where our kanaka are not being, removed by police. And if we can call it one pu'uhonua, it acts as a pu'uhonua. That's very important to me. Yeah, I need a lot more information because I have no idea what's happening with this. And not to blame it on anybody, it's the reality of there's a lot of things that are hidden through the lands here, especially in East Kuyaha, that things are being uncovered. And so, and trying to provide access to people to that ike and the documents to show. Yeah, that's kind of, it's hard for me to give a mana'o about a name for this place, for this particular bill and things like that.
Mahalo, Mr. Williams, and my hopo, we can kuka offline, so that I can share with you, more intention regarding the direction, and no pressure to make a decision on the spot right now. I think Member Bolton just wanted to hear some of your thoughts. So, as I stated earlier, I'm happy to bring this up in committee again. Especially after we have an opportunity to meet offline and then, have discussions there and then bring a recommendation back to committee.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Okay. Next, Member Hudgens, followed by Member Cook.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really glad Mr. Williams and Ms. Davis are here. I got some questions from Ms. Davis I was planning on asking, but she's here, so she asked herself, which is good. But then I also heard your intention, which I appreciate. I understand why you kept it broad, so we can have specifics for each space instead of putting it in writing for all of them. So that makes sense to me, actually. I think there's a couple other places that could benefit from this concept, which I'm stoked you're bringing up now. This was why I tried to put some funding and maintenance language in the open space so that they didn't have to come and ask us for money every single year when they're doing something that we said we were gonna do, but then we didn't. So I appreciate this. But I look forward to continuing having this conversation and look forward to what it could be in the future, these spaces. So thank you. And thank you so much for you folks being here as well. That was a pretty slide, and maybe we can talk stories after too, so I can ask you a few other questions. Thank you so much. Thanks, Chair.
Mahalo, Member Hudgens. Member Cook.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank the director for your thoughtfulness and that pause and consideration. I don't have any problem with the naming. I think that this is a very, very dynamic, meaningful discussion. I really feel you and hear you as far as like being able to relate to the place and it not just be, it's a park or whatever. Also, one of the challenges and opportunities we have in dealing with this, I see, is basically there's going to be people who are very interactive with the land, with the place, historically everything, and then there's going to be other people who are part of the community that want to interact, and for us to have, it's a great opportunity for us to be kinder with each other, be more open-hearted, and, support each other and be flexible. So I always enjoy, because a lot of thoughtfulness, and it isn't just reactionary, and I really respect that, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Mahalo, Member Cook. Okay, any other questions, members? Okay, so as members know, my committee is once a month. So my next committee would be September 25th. So I know Director asked for a couple days or a few days, but you have, you can have a month. And we can talk story with some who express interest. And I will put my email address, and then we can coordinate with Hamakualoa, myself and member Hajins with the community and OEV department, and then the hui there, and then for Mapulehu. And then I did hear folks express interest for other areas, so we can, look at potentially discussing those at the September 25th meeting. And I really want to help I really want to thank Mahalo, the OEV department, for supporting this effort, for providing that information, the GIS information for the 2 parcels to support my bills. Any final thoughts before we defer the items and then adjourn?
Mahalo, Chair. Some of the thoughts that I gathered as I sat here listening to testimony of ohana that are on the ʻāINA, or groups that malama the wahi, and the pilina or built-in relationships that are for those spaces. And one of the words that are continually rolling in my brain is one that we've had discussion on, and that is the term called ho'ilina, and that is the term that means legacies. We all come from them, and we all establish them, hoping that legacy will continue on. And for those that we come from, we try and do our very best to emulate that, where we care for our ʻāINA, or we care for our iwi kupuna, or we care for each other. And so those would be the grounding foundations in which our hui will think about how do we give you folks an appropriate space to think on inoa that can be with that in mind, legacy driven, because this is going to outlive us all. The ʻāINA is going to be here way after us. Those that are collectively caring for the space are going to have to do that in the next 7 generations as well. And so how we do this now will help lay for that foundation later. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Mahalo nui for that mana'o, and I look forward to our next meeting on this. Mahalo for being with us and working on this important now. Okay, members, are there any objections to deferring bills 106 and 107? Okay, mahalo for that. It is 1:14 on August 21st. Wait, I should check. Staff, is there anything I missed? Good. All right, okay, cool. All right, 1:14 on August 21st, and the KOMIKE ALOHA ʻāINA is now adjourned.